Okay, today we are getting our shit together as content creators because today we are going to unpack how to organize your entire business as a content creator, and it can be a lot. We're talking admin, bookkeeping, invoices, finances, content planning, content posting schedules. We're going to organize it all because let me say, being a content creator can be very overwhelming. The business of content can just be something that makes you spiral a lot, and so today we're going to unpack it all. And I'm so excited for this episode, for this video. Today is week 2 of a 4-week series that we're doing on this channel, on this podcast about the business of content creation. In the last video, we unpacked brand deals. I dropped everything that I've ever learned about brand deals after working in marketing for 7 years. Let me just say that video, that podcast episode last time was basically a free course. I used to sell a course online at Busy Blooming about brand deals and everything, and that video was like a full breakdown of everything I used to say in that course. So if you want to know anything about brand deals or how much to charge, the whole business side of brands is in last video. But for today's video, we're going to unpack the organization, the time management, the business side of how to get it all together today. So by the end of this video, I want you to feel just at peace, just like you can take a deep breath in about your posting schedule, your content planning routine. I personally have a 4-step content planning routine that I do with my content creators that I meet one-on-one. I also do with myself as a content creator on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram. It's a routine that I find makes me feel very organized, very just calm, relaxed, excited. But also, if you know anything about me, you might know that I do not have a chill bone in my body when it comes to organization. I'm an ex-corporate girly. I feel like that just, you can't take the corporate girly out of a girl when she's been in corporate for so long. And I just love being organized and having everything in Notion and in spreadsheets and all organized. Today, I'm going to share everything that I know about how to just get your shit together as a content creator. And hopefully by the end of this video, you're thinking, yeah, that's me too. I have it together. I have it all organized. So I hope you enjoy this video and let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about today in terms of getting it together as a content creator is content posting and your content schedule, because I think that is one of the most overwhelming parts of being a creator is how much should you post on social media? What platforms should you post on? There's 1 million platforms. It feels like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Pinterest, LinkedIn influencers are popping off nowadays. It's just very overwhelming as a creator. So today I'm going to break down my 4-step system of how to just always feel very organized with your content strategy, your content schedule, your posting structure, all of that. Because when it comes to posting content online, everybody always says like, be authentic, be yourself, but that's actually a lot deeper and more difficult than it sounds like. So today we're going to unpack a routine that I feel like really helps you get in alignment, feel very authentic, and just feel like you're in a good flow state with content creation. So my personal planning content routine, the routine that I give every creator that I meet, has 4 stages, and we're going to break each one down today. So the 4 stages of a content planning process, in my opinion, it includes your brand, platform prioritization, content seasons, and content pillars. Those are the 4 steps that I feel like has a really nice routine. So we're going to break each one down. And if you're feeling really overwhelmed, like, okay, how much do I post on social media? What platform should I post on? Should I post every day, 5 times a day? All of that. If this is the first video of mine that you're watching, then you might not know that I'm very much somebody, I've worked in this industry forever. I feel like I've worked with 500 content creators one-on-one. And what I always say, and what I've really learned, is that quality over quantity all the time. Because yes, we've all heard the advice that you should post 10 times a day on TikTok. That's how you blow up on TikTok. But in my opinion, and I actually recently heard a workshop that Meta did that said that 3 times a week is actually the ideal posting time right now for all the algorithms. And I also really do think that's reflecting on TikTok in addition to Instagram. It's just less is more. The algorithms have really shifted. I think back in 2020, 2021, maybe a little bit of 2022, the algorithm really favored quantity because it would push your content a lot faster. But nowadays, TikTok and Instagram Reels, it's pushing content out a little bit differently. It's trying to, I think, emulate the YouTube algorithm a little bit, where they're trying to create comfort creators, a lot of nurturing content. And so they're pushing things out slower. If this is the first video of mine you're seeing, I just want you to know, I really do believe 3 to 5 times a week as a content creator is a really, really good strategy in terms of quantity of content. I always think it is better to post less high quality content that accomplishes your why, is good for your brand, than just posting for the sake of posting. That is a place we never want to be, just posting for the sake of posting. So that's just a little preface into my content strategy. But let's kick it off with step number 1, which is defining your brand as a content creator. And this is the number 1 beginner step with everything. I do this all the time as a content creator myself. My brand is a Busy Blooming founder, is on this podcast channel, the Busy Blooming Content, but also as myself as a content creator on TikTok and Instagram on a more personal level. I'm always thinking and sitting down about my brand and always doing a little bit of a refresh. So when it comes to sitting down and planning out your content for the week, for the month, for the year, the first thing I want you to think about is, do you have a clear understanding of your brand on social media? And what I mean by this is, do you have a clear understanding of who you want to talk to, what you want to talk about, what problems you want to solve, what kind of content you want to create, what you want to be known for on social media? Like, think about, okay, if someone were to invite you on a podcast and they want to interview you, what do you want to be talking about on that podcast? What do you want to be known for? And if you could have 1 million followers of people in your community, who do you want those people to be? And that's your brand. And the reason I say this is the first step of planning your content on a weekly basis, like on TikTok, Instagram, everything, is because your brand is, I find oftentimes the reason we feel really overwhelmed, really just all over the place, like we don't have our shit together when it comes to planning out content, is because we don't really either know what we want to do on social media, we don't really know our brand and like what our thing is on social, or we feel like we know what it is, but deep down we're really out of alignment. We don't love our brand on social media, and that's why it's so hard to post, because you're feeling a lot of resistance of like, I just don't feel like talking about this thing right now. I don't feel like vlogging. I don't feel like showing my outfits. That's because you're out of alignment with your brand. So the first thing I always want you to do, whether it's weekly, monthly, yearly, is think about, okay, this is what I'm doing on social media. This is what I want to be known for. And I will say, in this little mini series we're doing for 4 videos, I will be doing a full breakdown of my 6-step 100K strategy that I talk about all the time. I'm going to post it for the first time on YouTube. It's always something I kept behind coaching in my course, but it's something I will be sharing in an upcoming video, which I think will really, really help with this first step of defining your brand, defining your strategy on social media. But for the sake of this video, just step number 1 in your content planning and getting it together. What is your brand on social media? Who do you want to be known for? And that is the beginning step to planning the rest of your content. Okay, so now that you have a clear, high-level understanding of your brand, next let's move on to step number 2, which is content pillars or buckets of content. When you go to sit down to plan out a week of content, a month of content, a quarter of content, sometimes it can feel overwhelming because you get frozen by opportunity. Like, there's so many things that you want to talk about. There's so many pieces of you that you want to be on social media, and it can be very freezing in a way of like, okay, I'm just going to post nothing because I have no idea what I want to say. I have no idea what I want to do. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with your audience. We're going to think, okay, what again is your target audience? Who do you want in your community? Who do you want to talk to on your brand on social media? Then we're going to pick 2 to 3 content pillars. Also, topics of content is another way to think about it. Content buckets. Content pillars is a very corporate marketing term that I feel like is starting to trickle in more into social media coaching and all of that. But content pillars is ultimately just like 2 to 3 buckets of content. So step number 2, when planning your content, think about 2 to 3, maybe 4 content pillars of buckets of topics that you want to talk about on social media. And an alternative option to this is, personally what I do is I have the same content pillars across everything. The Busy Blooming YouTube channel, the podcast, my personal TikTok, my personal Instagram. I have the same content pillars across my whole brand on social media. But if it feels easier for you to think, okay, I'm not different content pillars on TikTok, it's different content pillar on YouTube, like maybe YouTube is more vlogs, TikTok is more outfits and fashion, maybe your Instagram is recipes, you can do that as well, because I find a lot of the time it might be a little bit easier depending on the type of creator you are to do different content pillars per platform, or you could do the same 2 to 3 pillars across everything. But step number 2 in getting it together is just pick 2 to 4 topics, content pillars that you want to talk about. One more thing I will say is that one of these could be a series as well. I do series quite often over on TikTok where one of my pillars will be, okay, I'm doing 100 days to self-employed right now. So every so often I'll pull from that pillar and do a video for that series. So that's an option as well. Okay, so we got our brand, we got our content pillars that we're gonna do. Next, we're gonna go into our next phase of planning and just getting it together with your content, which is your content platform prioritization. This has changed my life as a content creator because I think, again, again, it can be very overwhelming to think, okay, I have to post on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube Shorts, and I'm going to quit social media because I don't want to be here anymore. It's too overwhelming. So what I will say is step number 3 in your content planning process is stop thinking about content creation platforms as a line and think about them as a pyramid. So think about your priorities in a pyramid hierarchy rather than a line. And what you're going to think about is, okay, what social media platforms do I want to prioritize? For me, this actually changes quite a bit. I would say the last 12 to 14 months, TikTok has been my everything, my entire personality, the love of my life. But I will say right now, I'm actually slowly shifting that over. So YouTube is my number 1 priority, and then Instagram, and then TikTok. So it's something to think about when you're planning your content is don't prioritize everything as number 1, because if everything's a priority, nothing actually is. And it can be really easy to lead to that overwhelm, which we're trying to avoid in this episode. So when you're planning your content, think about the priority order that you want all your social media platforms to be in. Where does TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, where do all those fall in order? Because let me tell you, it helps clear your mind so much when it comes to content planning when every platform is not a number 1 priority, because one has to be number 1. So all of that leads us to our final step, which is my favorite way to view content creation, which is in seasons. And I've actually never seen anybody else talk about this. I talk about this all the time on TikTok. I love to think of my content on social media, on YouTube, with the podcast, on TikTok and Instagram, all in seasons, just like on a TV show. And these seasons in your mind can either be monthly, they could be quarterly, they could be yearly, but every season of content you're in, you're going to do things a little bit differently. So for me, I personally plan things on a quarterly basis. Again, you can't take the corporate girly out of a girl, but I just love quarterly planning. And for me, because Q2 just started at the time that I'm filming this, but maybe when you're listening to this, summer's beginning, maybe it's the last quarter of the year, maybe it's the beginning of the next year. But what you want to do is think about a time that you want to assign to the content that you're planning. Because I also think it's really easy to get overwhelmed with content planning when you're thinking, okay, I have to plan content, a planning routine, and a system of topics that will work for the rest of my life. And that is very daunting. And one thing with content creation is that you're a human being. You change over time. You evolve. You learn things. You have different interests. Sometimes you post things on social media that you randomly just love talking about that you didn't really expect, or something does really well that you didn't expect. So you have to really allow your content planning strategy and your routine to be very fluid, very agile, really change and flow and evolve with you. So the last step is we're going to take our brand, our content pillars, our content prioritization, and we're going to pick a season of time. So let's take a month at a time. So you could sit down and think, okay, for this next month, the next 30 days, I'm going to be in the season of being a YouTuber, being in my fashion influencer era, or I'm really going to prioritize my podcast in this season, or I'm really wanting to lean into doing a series on TikTok in this season. But the reason I really like doing this is because it does make content creation a little bit more fun. So something I like to do, this might be a little bit extra, but I do really like it, is making a little Pinterest board, okay? Of like, on this season of content, what do you want your content to look like? Like, pull some pictures on Pinterest. What do you want maybe your feed on TikTok, on Instagram to look like? Maybe save some of your favorite videos on TikTok in a folder called summer season content. Really get some inspiration and visuals and think about, okay, in this next month, in this next quarter, in this next year of my content, what kind of season, what kind of era, for lack of a better phrase, do I want to be in with my content right now? And then what you're going to do is you're going to think, okay, for this next quarter, for this next month, I'm going to prioritize YouTube. I'm going to do these 2 to 3 content pillars. Maybe I'll do a series on TikTok, and I'm going to talk to this target audience. And that's what I'm doing right now in this season. What this does is it really allows you to change and flow and like vibe with where you're at right now as a content creator, but it also just takes the pressure off of having to figure out in 5 years from now, like who you want to be on social media. And this content planning strategy, this posting schedule strategy, which we will get to posting schedules in a second, but it really helps you stay always like energized and excited and refreshed and renewed. You really don't find yourself in content creator ruts as much with this system. So that is my 4-step content planning seasonal routine. I really like to do this quarterly. If you know me, then you also know I'm a Notion girly. I will have a template link below, of course. course, but I love Notion. So what I do every quarter is I sit down before the quarter begins and I think, okay, gonna go on Pinterest, gonna find all the kind of pictures, the vibe. I'm gonna go through TikTok, see what kind of vibe I want to do. I'm going to prioritize my platforms. I'm gonna write that down in Notion. I'm gonna write down who I want to be on social media, what brand I want to build on social media, the way I want to talk about these topics, which is what your brand really is your differentiator is about other content creators, and really create a seasonal strategy on Notion. You could do this on your notes app. You could do it in a Google document, like whatever kind of platform you want to use. But that is my 4-step routine. So now that we have the system down, let's move into talking about how to actually post this all and execute it on social media through a posting schedule or through a posting structure, which are two very different things. So when it comes to your posting schedule and how much to post on social media and all of that, I will say, in my opinion, there is no secret. There is no amount of videos that will make you go viral, which can be actually a worst nightmare, which I want to talk about in another episode. But there's no secret number. There's no standard, because every single person you talk to will say something differently, which can be extremely frustrating, because I find that every single content creator, coach, consultant, every single person who works in influencer marketing, we all say different things, because every single piece of advice that you hear has a different end goal. Because, for example, if your end goal on TikTok is to go viral, that's literally all you care about, I would say it actually is not bad advice to post 10 times a day. I would say post things that are really controversial that will get a lot of comments. And I would say post like random trends, just like post literally anything you can think of that will get a lot of comments and engagement, people sharing it, and post as much as you can to go viral if that's all you want to do. But if I'm thinking, okay, what you really want to do is be a full-time content creator or maybe a part-time content creator, make an income from it, build a brand, really have a sustainable strategy, that like a really meaningful brand that leaves an impact, I would not say to post 10 times a day. I would say post 3 to 5 times a week, really high quality content that feels really aligned, really on brand for you. So I think that's why there's such just a mix of content creation advice, because every piece of advice has a different end goal. So what I will say when it comes to posting structures and posting schedules, there is no magic number. The only thing I would really think about is, are you more of a content schedule person, or are you more of a content structure person? Because for me personally, you might know this already, I hate content schedules, which might be a little bit surprising, but if I have a day of a week assigned of like, this TikTok has to go to Monday, the podcast has to go to Tuesdays, I spiral. It makes me post for the sake of posting. I really, really don't like it. So I prefer a structure. So the first thing I want you to think about is, okay, do you prefer a schedule? And a schedule is if you have assigned content per day on each platform. Like TikTok, you do Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and YouTube, you do Mondays, like etc. You have specific days. Or a content structure, and a content posting structure is when you have an amount of content per week. So you say, okay, I do 1 YouTube video a week or 1 podcast a week. I do 3 TikToks a week. I do 4 reels a week. Like you have an amount of content instead of a day for content, if that makes sense. And both are really great in my opinion. So think about, okay, structure versus schedule, what works best for you. And then I want you to think about what amount of content, and I say this all the time, feels easy and effortless, like is not a stretch. What is actually so easy and effortless and sustainable for you to do for 6 months? So if you have a 9-to-5 job, when I had a 9-to-5 job, I was posting 1 video a week on YouTube and probably like once a week on TikTok, and I grew that way. So think about, okay, is it easy, like genuinely easy and effortless for me to post 5 videos a week on TikTok, or is maybe 3 a little bit easier? But what I want you to think about is be so real with yourself, so realistic of like, okay, how much can I actually post every single week? And then what we're going to do is write down this master plan somewhere. So this is either going to be in your Notion, in your notes app, a Google document somewhere, where you're going to write down all of this for this season of content. So maybe you're in Notion, you create a new page for this new era, new quarter, new month, new whatever, and you're going to create a little banner for the top. You're going to write out your brand, your audience, your posting structure, your platform prioritization, and this is going to be the best feeling, to feel so organized. Like the theme of this week's video and episode is just, you're going to feel like you have it together of like, okay, this is what I'm doing on social media. These are my priorities. This is my content pillars that I want to talk about. And let me just tell you, it is the best feeling ever to just get your system feeling aligned and in check, and again, like fresh all all the time. So the way I do this is that I have a master plan, and then I do this on a weekly basis, which you don't have to do, but I do find, again, this just helps me feel like I have it together is when I have a weekly plan. So I do either on a Saturday or a Sunday or Monday morning, ideally on the weekend, but sometimes Monday morning, I will go into my Notion and I'll plan out the week. So I'll be like, okay, let me check out my master plan. Okay, this is my season I'm in for content right now. This is kind of what I'm trying to do. Let me plan out the week. So I'm going to do, okay, maybe a YouTube video I'll record on Tuesday because I don't have any meetings on Tuesday. I'll do a couple TikToks throughout the time. I just do a rough plan each week based on this master plan. But without that master plan that we just talked about of this 4-step planning process, creating a weekly schedule of content, again, can lead to that overwhelming feeling of what am I doing? This is so overwhelming because you don't have that base to ground you. So when it comes to getting it together in terms of content planning, schedules, organization, all of that is my biggest piece of advice, is this system to just get all organized, have it all laid out, and then take that plan and do it smaller on a weekly basis and keep it fresh, keep it monthly, keep it quarterly, whatever works best, but always ground yourself in your brand, what you want to do in social media, what is realistic, what are your priorities, and have it written down somewhere in a really fun way. Maybe you have a Pinterest board, but that is my favorite way to plan content. Just always feel like you have it together as a creator. Okay, next up on our agenda today of how to get it together, we're going to talk about money, finances, bookkeeping, taxes, and invoices. Because those words are terrifying as a content creator. At the time I'm filming this, it is tax season 2024 for last year of 2023, and the light has been taken out of my eyes because it's tax season, and it is the spookiest time of year. Halloween has nothing on tax season. It is quite truly terrifying as an independent worker, as somebody who is a content creator, entrepreneur, podcaster. If you do not have a 9-to-5 job, tax season is quite something, and I could do a whole video on it maybe next year with an accountant, because I am not somebody to give tax advice, but I do have to say, when it comes to tax season, I do have to pat myself in the back sometimes because I do feel like I'm very organized in terms of tracking everything, having all my finances, my expenses, my invoices, my contracts. I have actually quite a good system that I want to share today because I know it can, again, feel like you just don't have it together in terms of the business side of it, which is what I wanted to talk about in this little 4-video series. So this is my 2-step system of how I organize everything in terms of bookkeeping, admin, and finances, as I have 2 ultimate trackers, one for brand deals and one for all of my finances. And those 2 trackers, those 2 spreadsheets encompass everything I just talked about. I do have a template that I'll link down below, but you can just make this on Google Sheets. You can also use something like Rella, which I love. You can use code BusyBlooming for 50% off Rella, but there's a lot of tools that you can use, but I'm a spreadsheet girl for the most part. I do love a good Google Sheet. So first, let's talk about organizing your brand deals, because last week we talked about how to get brand deals, but that's great. You got your brand deals. How do we organize them? Because again, that can be quite chaotic. So when it comes to organizing brand deals, I like to have a spreadsheet. And so on the spreadsheet, again, I'll link the template down below, but you can make it yourself, is I like to have a tracker that organizes every single brand deal, and I break it out per month throughout the year. So in each column of the spreadsheet, you can also do this in your notes app or in a document, is I track who the brand is, how much they're paying me, my deliverables, when the content is due, when the invoice is due, and a link to the contract. So what I do with all of my brand deal contracts is I'll upload them to Google Drive, and then I'll take a link and link that on each row to have the correlating contract for each brand deal. And for each brand deal, always make sure you get the signed copy back from the brand, because that's the actual legally binding document, is the both signed version. So having some sort of tracker on a monthly basis to have all the things that I just listed is the best feeling ever. You can take a look and see exactly how much money you made, where your contracts are, where everything's due. It's just such a good thing to have all in one spot. When it comes to brand deal invoices, that can also be something that's a little bit overwhelming and complicated. So what I like to do, I'm a QuickBooks girly. I love QuickBooks more than anything. This is not a brand deal. The way I wish this was a brand deal more than anything, but it's not. I've actually done a brand deal with them a couple of years ago, but I love QuickBooks. It's like $10 a month, and I have used this since 2019, 2020, and I invoice all of my brands through there. So the reason I like it, because it automates all your invoices. So you create an invoice in there, you email it to the brand, and it actually auto reminds them. So it sends them automatic reminders. It also just tracks like when everything's due, which is a really nice thing. But if you don't want to buy QuickBooks or you want a free edition, what you can just do is go into Canva, create a free invoice template in there, add in all your details, and send that as a PDF to the brand. But always keep those invoices somewhere, either linked in your Google Drive in your spreadsheet, linked in a little file on your desktop, but always have your invoices on hand as well. That is my simple, easy system. You can always do this in like a chart on Notion as well, but that's my system for organizing brand deals, is having a master spreadsheet tracker with everything linked in there. And then I do the same system for my finances. So for my finances, you could use a spreadsheet as well. I personally use QuickBooks and Notion. I use a mix of both, which I'll go into now, but have a tracker for brand deals or another page in that same spreadsheet, or just another spreadsheet tracker for your finances, expenses, and income. So what you're going to put in this finance tracker, either in QuickBooks, whatever system you want to use, in the second tracker to track all of your income and expenses, is you're going to go month by month again, same as the brand deal tracker. And what you're going to do is on each line have in each line for a revenue stream or an income stream. So this could be YouTube AdSense, brand deals, coaching, courses, digital products, whatever it is, but have a line for each income stream of a way that you make money through your business. And then under each one every month, just add up the total and have it in there. Then what you're going to do in the same chart is have another line for expenses. So any amount of money that you have spent to make that income. So this could be Ubers that you took to an event. It could be cameras that you bought to make content. It could be stuff you bought to film a brand deal. But anything that you've spent money on to make that income is a business expense. You can also check out, if you're in Canada, the CRA website actually has like an influencer page right now where you can really learn more about expenses and all of that. But always track your income and expenses together every single month. I know it's annoying, but it is just the best feeling ever to be like, I know exactly how much money I made and exactly how much I spent, especially when it comes to tax season, having all of this organized. For me personally, because it's just my full-time job and I have my business as a content creator, but I have another business of Busy Blooming. I have people that work at Busy Blooming as contractors. There's a lot going on. So I personally use QuickBooks because I just really like it. It connects to my credit card, my checking, savings, all my bank accounts, all of my investments. So I can automatically track every dollar that comes in and out of all of my accounts, all of my credit cards. And then what you can do is go in there and put business or personal, you can tag an income stream. It's a really nice program. So that's personally what I use. And what I will say is something that's kind of nice about being really organized with either QuickBooks or your own spreadsheet where you save all your expenses and receipts and all of that, is that when it comes to tax season, if you do use an accountant, it's usually cheaper because they don't need as much time to spend on your account and like on you as a client, because you're so organized. You have all your stuff ready, which is a nice little win there. But my personal process is what I do to organize all my finances is that I use QuickBooks, it tracks everything. And then what I do is a little financial snapshot chart in Notion at the end of every single month. So I'll do, okay, in April this month, I made this much from Busy Blooming, this much from brand deals, this much from etc. I have a chart that has every revenue stream, how much I made. And then I have one line that tracks all the expenses. Just have a quick little snapshot, a high level of all of the finances for that month. But those are the two tracking systems that I personally use. And yes, it is kind of annoying, but you know, Taylor Swift, her little album can solve everything. Put on some Tortured Poet Society and put that on, make a little tracker, light a candle, like romanticize financial bookkeeping. But let me just say, it is such a good feeling to know exactly how much money you made, how much you spent, what brand deals are on the go, where all your contracts are. Having these trackers is just like such a good feeling. Again, theme of this episode, to feel like you have it together, you have your shit together with your business as a content creator. And another little additional note I will say, I also like to track my work and my output for the month, which is another not really related to finances, but it's a good way at the end of the month to track what you're doing and like celebrate a little bit what you're doing. So what I do is I track how many podcast episodes did I post, how many TikTok videos did I post, like how much did I do in terms of coaching sessions, in terms of things sold. It's just a really good way as well at the end of the month to track your output and think, okay, yeah, no, I actually did more than I thought that I did. Because as a content creator, that feeling of overwhelm and like you're just never doing enough, you're always always drowning, you're never done work, it can be really discouraging. And so having a little output tracker at the end of every month is a really nice way to just calm yourself down and think, okay, no, I'm doing stuff, I'm posting content, I'm doing a lot, and just, it's such a good feeling to just have it together. Okay, so the final thing on our agenda for this episode in this video is time management. And time management, I think, is the sole reason that we all feel like our life is falling apart as content creators and as influencers and as entrepreneurs, is because time management is the hardest thing to master. Ask any entrepreneur who has done it for decades. It's the hardest thing. It's procrastination and time management. So I thought I would give you a few pieces of advice. One thing I will say is I did a whole video on how to be a content creator when you don't have time. It's linked from a couple of months ago at this point, but go check it out. That video is dedicated to sitting down and talking about how to be a creator when you do not have time to do it, or you feel like you don't have time to do it. But for this episode, I thought I would just give you a couple pieces of advice. So my biggest piece of advice when it comes to time management might not be what you're thinking, but it is to write your own rules as a content creator and as an entrepreneur when it comes to content creation. I feel like we just get into these programmed mindsets as content creators on social media and podcasters of, okay, you have to post 3 times a day on TikTok. You have to post every other day on YouTube, or you have to post a podcast on a day of the week at the same time. That's what you have to do. And it's not true. Like, these rules, no one has them written down anywhere. They just kind of float around. And I think it's because we romanticize consistency so much. As creators, we always think, okay, being consistent is the number one most important thing ever, but it's just not true. Because I always think consistency is not all about, I talk about this all the time, but I don't think consistency is that much to do with how much content you post all the time. It's way more to do with consistent branding, consistent energy, consistent messaging, consistent aesthetic even. But I would just say, when it comes to time management, rewrite your own rules. I have really done this recently as a podcaster, especially coming back after such a long medical leave off of work. Is like, okay, when I come back to the podcast, I think we want to be more of a YouTube channel actually than like an audio show that goes out at 5 a.m. on Mondays. I actually want to lean in more to being a visual YouTube show as a podcast. And we're not going to do a Monday at 5 a.m. We're just going to go out once a week. And we're slowly coming back to that, but we're just going to go out to once a week. And on TikTok, I'm just going to post like 1 to 2 times a week, like whenever I really feel like it. And on Instagram, I'm actually not going to post every single day on stories. I'm actually going to lean more into reels. And what I want to say when it comes to time management is, don't feel like you have to take on these rules and these expectations of posting a certain amount of per week or per day. Those rules just do not exist, and you can really do whatever you want. And what I want you to think about with all of this, feeling like you have it together and organized and calm and peaceful, having fun, is that I want you to feel like you can do exactly whatever you want. You can post exactly however much content that you want to post, whatever feels good, whatever feels authentic, because especially when it comes to growth, you're going to get all your growth from like 1 or 2 or 3 videos anyways. So like any creator will tell you, especially on TikTok, you go through your videos that have maybe popped off and are in the millions. Those videos are where you got all of your followers, maybe 40,000 followers from one video. I've had that experience. And then all your other videos, you're not getting 40,000 per video, but they're more nurturing content for your existing audience. So another way to think about it too is that you're going to get a lot of influx of following from a couple pieces of content, but also there are no rules with content creation. This is not a regulated 9 to 5. You have to post X amount of these times and these days. As a creator, you can really do exactly whatever you want, which is what makes it fun. So figure out, in terms of time management, get really real with yourself of how much can you actually post per week, per day, what feels really, really good. And that's my biggest piece of time management advice. Another piece of advice that I have is to reuse your content and create faceless content. So what I mean by this is, yes, repurpose your content on YouTube Shorts, Pinterest, Instagram Reels, TikTok, everything. But when you're creating content every week, don't create every piece of content as a fresh video that you have to sit down and film. That's not the case. You probably, as a content creator, have so much footage sitting on your phone. How can you use that footage? Maybe it's vlog footage or B-roll from something. Could you use an audio from your podcast? Or could you put a bunch of clips together and like voice over a piece of advice? Or could maybe you take some pictures and put a carousel post together on your feed on TikTok rather than doing a sit-down video? Really think about every single week, all the footage that you have on your phone, how could you use it? Like, could you maybe put an Emma Chamberlain sound on TikTok over your vlog clips. Like, how can I use that footage and really lean into creating faceless content? What I mean by this is not fresh sitting down talking to the camera content every single week. I do this all the time on Instagram. I'm sure if you follow me, you notice, like, my old vlog footage, I use my podcast audio all the time, and I love it. It's like so easy to make content. So not every piece of content has to be a sit down fresh video, because that's very, very time consuming. Okay, my last biggest piece of advice when it comes to content creation and time management is plan out everything before the week begins. So sit down on a Sunday night or a Monday morning and do everything that we talked about in this video. It helps so much with time management to sit down on a Wednesday morning and you have your pre-populated list of like, okay, today I was going to sit down and film a podcast episode, or maybe I'm going to do 3 TikToks this week. Like, you have a plan that's done already, so you're not taking it day by day, which can be really, really overwhelming. So I just love the system of like a Sunday night, Monday morning planning of the week, and that using the system that we talked about today. I feel like that's just like the biggest piece of time management advice as well, was have a clear plan for the week and have that big master plan of like that will ground you and guide you in your brand of what you want to talk about, how you want to talk about it, your content pillars, all of that for each season of content. If you're feeling like, okay, this is so hard to post on YouTube or it's so hard to post on TikTok, I don't really feel like talking about this right now, take a look inward. Don't look outward at what everyone else is saying. Look inward for a second. Or are you talking about things that you don't feel passionate about, that you've outgrown, that you don't really want to talk about anymore? Do you really hate posting on TikTok now? That's okay. We've all been there. Maybe you want to get more into Instagram or more into YouTube or start fresh on something. Do what you want to do. And if you find that time management and consistency and procrastination are a lot of big barriers for you, tap into your brand and think about, okay, is it because I'm out of alignment and I need to rebrand and get back in check of what I really want to do on social media? Okay, so that is everything for this week's video, this week's episode. It feels good to be back. I'm just so happy to be back podcasting and filming content again, and I could talk about content creation for the rest of my life, and I just love it so much. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video, this week's episode. And if you guys are new, my name is Tess Barclay. I'm the founder of Busy Blooming. We run a creator services agency where we edit podcasts and YouTube videos. I'm also a content creator on TikTok where I talk about this stuff all the time. We have a free community called Busy Blooming. Go check it out, create a profile, post in there. If you ever need support about anything we talk about on this podcast channel, always feel free to post in the Busy Blooming community any questions you have. Everyone in this Busy Blooming universe is just so nice and so supportive. We're all creators embracing the cringe every single day. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye.